Hey everyone, Pew Pew Preacher here. Welder Tactical sent me the brand new Hitman Charlie belt, and I'm going to share with you some of the highlights of the features of this belt, as well as how to assemble it. Welder Tactical's Hitman series of gear is designed to be lightweight, and this is their original Hitman belt. And it has MOLLE columns, as you might expect for a battle belt, where you can mount pouches and such. One downside for me was that I had lost about 20 pounds of weight, and so my waist had gone down. And so while this had fit well when I was 20 pounds heavier, I am down to the very smallest size that this can possibly go, and it's still just a little loose. And so the issue comes up is if you, like me, are losing weight, you may need to have to get an entirely new belt because there's no way to make this belt any smaller. Welder Tactical's new Hitman Charlie belt has some different features that are new. One being that you can change out the buckle to whatever buckle you want, where in the previous model you can only have one buckle and that's what you were stuck with. For this one, you can change it out to any buckle that you want. I currently have a Cobra buckle with a D-ring on there. Another feature is instead of having MOLLE columns, it has holes in the belt where you would directly mount your pouches and such with screws. And another big difference is instead of one piece of the belt, it's actually a two-piece belt. And that way you can adjust the size of your belt, especially if you're fluctuating in weight. So if you can increase and decrease the belt, that would make this belt pretty much a one-size-fits-most belt. To assemble your inner belt, you're going to need both halves of your inner belt, and you're going to need two of the included screws, as well as two of the included sleeve nuts. And you'll also need a Phillips screwdriver and a flathead screwdriver to tighten the screws. First, you're going to take both halves and loop them together. I like to make it as tight as possible here so that it has room for my EDC, like so. And then when I get to the range, I can tighten it up all the way like that. Once you have that strap on, you're going to go ahead and loop the inner belt into the belt loops of your pants. And so what you're going to do then is make it to how tight you'd like your inner belt to be and line up the holes. Now that I have my inner belt marked with a piece of chalk of where I want the screw to go, I'm going to go ahead and line up the holes together, use the screw sleeve, stick it through that hole where I marked, and use a screw to go ahead and screw in that hole. And I'll use a flathead screwdriver for the back and a Phillips head screwdriver to tighten the two together. And then I'll go ahead and find this other side of the belt and put a screw in that spot as well, with the sleeve and with the screw. Assembling your Hitman Charlie belt is going to be very similar as assembling your inner belt. And before you can do that, you're first going to need to attach your buckle onto your belt. And so for mine, I'm going to be using a Cobra belt that has a D-ring. Once you have the buckles installed on your belt, you're going to go ahead and buckle the belt. And you're going to place the buckle on your back, and then with the inner belt, you're going to put the Hitman Charlie on, and you're going to line up the holes once again, just like you did with your inner belt. I'm going to use a piece of chalk again, just kind of mark a spot for me to remember. And then I'm going to take the belt off and install the screws. This time, however, I am not going to tighten the screws because the screws may occupy space that may be required for a pouch that I want. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and place a sleeve and a screw in a spot that is just going to be a placeholder while I set up the rest of my pouches. So now I have just that one screw that holds both halves of the belt together to keep the size that I want. I'm going to keep it like that for a moment, and now I'm going to install these brackets into my pouches so that they can be mounted onto the belt. Installing these brackets are fairly simple. You're just going to weave the bracket through the MOLLE loops. And you're going to want to make sure that the screw holes are open like that. Once you have the brackets installed on all the pouches that you want on your belt, you can start mounting them onto your Hitman Charlie belt. If you noticed, you'll have within your included screws a set of short screws and a set of longer screws. So if you're mounting a pouch where your Hitman belt is layered up like that, you're going to want to use the longer screws. And in the places where it's not layered, you're going to want to use the shorter screws. So all you need to do is just line up the holes with your pouch and install the screws. I've got my IFAK mounted right in the middle of the back of my belt. And so since it's going through both layers of the belt, I can go ahead and remove that placeholder screw that I have there in the sleeve, as I don't really need that there anymore now that the IFAK is holding both halves of the belt together. For mounting your pistol pouches, you have the option of mounting them vertically, and there are also holes that allow you to mount them at a 45-degree angle. Once you've got all your pouches and holster mounted onto your belt, you're pretty much done. And so you can go ahead and make any minor adjustments as you need to. You can even trim any leftover nylon or the shot cords and take it to the range.